Hey everyone, welcome to Navajo Tea Time Live. As always, we are having internet issues. So I'm going to start right now because it seems like there's some viewers joining us, and Adrian will hop on when she can find a reliable internet signal, or or she'll just be in the chat with the rest of you all. So yeah, how's everyone doing? How is this winter, this December treating everyone? It doesn't really feel so much Christmassy because there's no snow, and that always feels like a great indicator of the Christmas holiday season is all the snow. Um, One of my groups that I'm a part of is the Sony Alpha Female Photography Facebook group, and they do weekly grants, like you get $500 if you win the photo contest for that week, and one of their prompts was winter landscapes, and I was just looking around and I'm like, it's the same winter, summer, spring, fall. The landscape doesn't really change unless we have really good rain, and then it's kind of green. So I was just thinking about that a couple days ago, about like the winter landscape, and how out here on the reservation, especially in Cameron or the more desert areas, we don't really get that winter feeling or that traditional Christmas idea of having snow and the evergreens. So that's just kind of interesting to think about when thinking about the winter season. Also, today is the winter solstice, December 21st, which is the shortest day of the year or the longest night of the year, depending on how you want to look at it. And yeah, for me and my family, we like, instead of like celebrating the bank holidays or the government holidays, we like to celebrate the celestial holidays and the lunar holidays that the bank holidays are kind of based off of, like Christmas and Easter and Halloween and stuff. Those are more very lunar based, of like, or even celestial based. So me and my family like to kind of highlight those moments more than, oh, it's Easter, we're gonna go get eggs. Well, we do, but we also try to incorporate some stuff. Wait, I'm still here. Ah! um, there. Sorry. For me and Adrian to be able to meet online, we do Google Meets, and I guess it was trying to kick me out of the meeting software while I'm waiting for Adrian to show up. Um, so yeah, so tonight, me and my husband and my family, we're gonna have a bonfire. We're gonna roast marshmallows. Adrian, there you are. Oh, thank goodness. I don't like talking to myself at this. It's okay. I was just saying what I'm gonna do for the winter solstice, and like later this evening, we're gonna have a bonfire with marshmallow roasts. Welcome. That's cool. Yeah. Yep. 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 Yeah,
So yeah, that's our plan.
yeah, that's cool. So just to really reiterate what Adrian said, because I forgot to turn her mic on when she joined, I was so excited. Her and her family, they saw a post by the Indian Collective, saying how the winter solstice is decolonization of the holidays, and how her and her family kind of had a talk about what it meant to them and what it means, and because we don't really talk about the solstice or equinoxes or anything like that. Um, it's always just buy candy and gift cards. So,
Oh, I see.
well, like that, the colonization of the holidays are just like, don't worry about what we're celebrating, just celebrate with candy and gift cards.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, like the commercialization of a lot of these sacred times, I guess.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have some facts about the winter solstice. This
Okay,
is,
so is my mic on?
yes, your mic is on now.
Okay. I was all jibber jabbering earlier when I jumped on. That's cool.
um,
I get it. Ew.
so it says the first, uh, trying to figure out where to start without just like reading it verbatim. But it says December
Mm,
1st is the meteorological first day of winter, while December 21st, the winter solstice,
mm-hmm,
is the astronomical first day of winter.
mm-hmm,
Meteorologists, those who forecast the weather, and climatologists, those who study climate change, define the meteorological season. So the four seasons coincide with the weather we expect to see for each season. So I guess like cuz you definitely see like kind of like a shift in like some of the seasonal stuff. Sometimes a winter seems to start later with like the storms and the
mm-hmm.
weather, or sometimes it seems to start earlier. And I feel like that's definitely happened in the past couple of years, like with me planting. It's like it feels like the spring or the time to plant just keeps getting later and later because the last frost comes so much later.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like what's happening with our weather versus what's happening in the stars and our sunlight is definitely not always in sync. So it's cool that they have those two
Mm-hmm.
different um, definitions of when the climate wet first winter and then the astronomical first winter is first day of winter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think unless you are a climatologist or you are really in tune with your environment, I feel like a lot of people don't really pay attention. They kind of rely solely on meteorologists to inform them about what's to come on a day-to-day or weekly basis, right? Or an
Yeah.
app.
Or the
And I
farmer's
think,
almanac. Almanac?
yeah, the almanac, yeah, almanac.
I can't say words anymore.
But I do wonder, I mean, I think it gives me some sense of security though, knowing that, winter is beginning today officially, as opposed to like, say, anyone else, you know what I mean? I mean, the patterns are always going to change, right? And I know we're kind of in a climate crisis right now. And this is probably the warmest winter I've ever been in. I mean, it's like December 21st. And honestly, like, look at how sunny that it's like so sunny and warm outside. It's crazy. Like the kids are outside chopping wood, but they're in t-shirts.
It's
Like it doesn't
definitely
really
the driest, one of the driest. I feel like we
Mhm.
like in the past we've had like a snowstorm or two before Christmas.
Mhm.
But this is definitely one of the driest ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I was hoping that we would get at least rain, but yeah, it's been really dry. I've noticed the only precipitation seems to hit the tops of the mountains, so about maybe 7 to 14,000 feet. You're seeing kind of a little bit of snow accumulation on Ducal Sleet at least. But I was in New Mexico, and as I was approaching Farmington the other day, there was frost on the ground, or like not really frost. I think it was like remnants of snow kind of on the northern side of the hills. And it wasn't deeply accumulated, but there was some there. So I'm thinking they maybe got some, like a light storm, maybe. But out here, it's dry. I'm
Right?
really shocked. Mm-hmm.
I remember like waking up some mornings, even if there was no like rain or snow, there was still like the frozen air precipitation or whatever, the frost.
Yeah,
But
you could feel it, huh?
there's no frost. It's all just dry air, dry cold air. So there's nothing to freeze and nothing to turn little
Mm-hmm.
sparkly glitter on the ground.
Seriously, I was expecting that, and I'm not seeing it at all.
hmm
And I was actually worried too because this coming week, in a day or two, we're gonna do a manhood ceremony for one of our sons. He's 16 now, and his voice is changing, and he finally went through his growth spurt, so he's tall. He's taller than me now, and so we organized it, and we're gonna be doing that on Monday. And man, like at first I was scared. I was like, man, it's gonna be really cold, like for a sweat lodge. You know what I mean? Like, I hope no one gets like catches a cold. You kind of worry about those things, but it's all warm. So I'm not worried about it. I'm like, dang, this kid's got it easy, but yeah, but
Yeah.
that's what we're up to. Yeah, as we're just preparing for that right now.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah.
hmm I guess
Um,
I could make a little announcement. So, for those who are watching who might be interested, the Diné Hataałii Association is having a meeting tomorrow at Diné College in Saley. And if you're interested in hearing more about, I guess, the the issues that a lot of our medicine people, healers, and singers are currently discussing, or the things that others care about and have requested to be put on the agenda. Their meetings tomorrow at 9 a.m. and you can join via Zoom. You don't have to show up in person. And so if you go to their website, dhainc.org, it's for dinahatathliinc.org. The Zoom link is on there. So
I just posted
if
the
anyone's
link in
interested.
chat.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah. So check it out. It's tomorrow at 9, and it usually runs a couple hours. And right now they're approaching a new election. So the current administration, they're going to be moving into a new election to bring in a new president of the association. Or if the current one gets renominated, then so it's just a part of the process. It's in their bylaws. So that's upcoming. So if you're interested to hear more about that, to see what the process looks like, and then to also hear the rules about nominations and all of that and the election, it would be a good meeting to attend, especially if you care about this sort of thing, because the Diné Toffee Association, they play a really important role in legitimizing practitioners because they have a certification process. And then if you are a knowledge holder or a practitioner, you actually have to go through this process of proving like who you learned from, who your teachers were, where you got that ceremony, when you got your dish, and then you're tested. And so it's really interesting. So I think that's really important because I think in this day and age, sometimes we encounter or we hear about people encountering people that say they can do ceremony, but they're actually not. They're truly not in a position to do it because they didn't actually earn their dish or they didn't acquire it in the way they said. Sometimes people lie. So that's kind of something that the organization um, helps to combat, I guess. So, and other things too. They also are part of, I guess, in many ways, kind of like traditional healthcare. So
Mhm.
if you think about a
Mm.
healthcare system, that's really what they're addressing because they address the physical, emotional, spiritual, right, psychological um, elements of life, and especially for Diné people. So yeah, that's my little announcement. And it's open to the public. Yeah, all of their meetings are on their posted on their website along with the Zoom link and the location. So
That's cool.
mhm,
So if people
yep,
want to know
pretty
where to
cool.
find a medicine man, you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
always go to Facebook Marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to ghainc.org. You can also send them emails and say, hey, this is someone who I'd like to work with. Are they certified? You know what I mean? And they can give you that information. Or if you're saying, I'm looking for a person to conduct this ceremony for this reason, or I need a diagnosis, and then they can help connect you with the right people. But yeah, they're really facing, I mean, it's really important too, because I don't know if you knew this or if our audience knew this, but before the pandemic, we had 26 ceremonies, full ceremonies. And this includes like all the protocol, all the songs, and, you know, for the duration of the entire ceremony. And after the pandemic, because we lost a lot of people, we currently only have 13 left.
Mm.
And so that's a 50% loss. It's crazy. So, it's real. I know it's difficult for some people to find someone um, to find someone to connect with for specific ceremonies. But what the Diné Hataałii Association is also doing is they're tracking the apprentices who have been apprenticing with some of those older Hataałii that might have passed on and working with them to help them get their dish. So it's really interesting. So these are some of the conversations I think that people will hear and could be a part of also if they were to attend the meetings. So, yep.
Cool. That's
Hmm.
useful information.
Happy to help. A.
I wonder, just because this is Navajo tea time, do you get like pushback for having like registration of people, or people being registered and saying like, I don't know, putting everything on pen and paper and making it like an official document isn't really, I don't know, a traditional way or a spiritual way of like,
Not really. I mean, some people choose not to go through the association and that's their choice, but the reason why they do it is because oftentimes our healthcare system here in on the Navajo Nation, it it does require certification to work with the hospitals or to work with like behavioral health or to work with schools or to even conduct certain types of education to students or to communities. So certification does help, especially since the pandemic, because there were some big grants that were put out, like through FEMA, during like COVID relief and things like that. And they were really adamant when they were working with people that they wanted to make sure that they were certified because that means there's some sort of vetting process in place, but there's also authenticity, so it's not an individual just saying, oh, I can do A, B, and C. There's actually an organization behind them saying, yes, this person has done A, B, and C, and they follow the rules, and there's a board of directors that oversees their practices, and there's also I guess a disciplinary element too if any of them were to step out of line outside the ceremonial protocol or even do something predatory and say a patient or their family reports it, that person will lose their certification, but they'll also um kind of be blacklisted too. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And so in many ways that's a really good protection element for the people because there are people out there that might stoop to that level who might want to do harm or they just might want to get people's money. And the thing about ceremony too is they say that our songs and prayers were handed down from the holy people themselves. So you're not supposed to ever modify the songs or prayers. You're not ever supposed to make up your own. they have to be in their original format and they have to be conducted in the proper order. There's all these like rules in place that they have to follow, and that's not for any other reason except that that protects the patient. You know what I mean? If it's conducted properly, then healing will follow. If it's done improperly, then harm could occur. And so that's what they're trying to protect against is people getting hurt or people getting swindled. So um I think if people were to have some sort of pushback, then that's really their own choice. But I also kind of question why, you
Hmm.
know? But there is another organization. It's called the Medicine Man's Association, and they're completely different. Um, I think they're kind of a loose organization. I don't think they're an official nonprofit, but the Diné Hataałii Association is an actual 501c3 nonprofit organization. So
Okay.
those are the two differences. Yeah.
I know we got some questions on like one of my vlogs about
Hmm.
like I was trying to get clarification on some of it, but they were saying something about like traditional Christmas or traditional Diné, and I don't
Oh.
know what they were talking about because they had the tree emoji, so I don't know if they wanted to see my traditional Christmas tree or any traditional practices or things that people do during, the winter season.
Hmm.
And I myself didn't grow up traditional. I grew up with a Christian family, but I've never identified as Christian. It's never linked with me.
Hmm.
Um, but I do enjoy a lot of the themes and the festivities of the Christmas, like secular Christmas, I think is what they call it, when you
Hmm.
just celebrate the holiday without the religion. But
Hmm.
then these past few years, I've been trying to bring in some of the old ways, the old
Yeah.
not entirely Navajo, but on my grandfather's side, he's from the German region area, so there's a lot of those like Yule and different like the Christmas tree is from German
Hmm.
area. So doing the Yule, doing the bonfires for the winter solstice, doing simmer pots, which is just where you like get specific plants and herbs and oranges, like orange, cinnamon, cranberries, and you put them in the water and you just kind of boil it with cinnamon and other herbs, and it just fills the house with that smell, and it kind of like cleanses the house and the area. Um,
Hmm.
and then the bonfire and all this other stuff is what I do
Hmm.
for a traditional um
Hmm.
practice. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's like any type of like Navajo. I know there's like string game and telling coyote stories.
Hmm.
It's hard to tell here in Cameron when we're allowed to do that because it's like, oh, the first frost or the first snow,
Hmm.
and we don't get snow until like February.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. So what I know about that, so for those who are watching who might be unfamiliar with Dina culture, I think one of the best ways to think about it is to kind of orient yourself in the way of thinking is in the Dina way of thinking, we think very circular, and there's a model that so close your eyes and imagine a huge circle and think of the cardinal directions, right? You have north, east, south, west. And in each of those directions, there's landmarks, and these landmarks are mountains. And then think about inside near the middle, there's two other landmarks, and those are also mountains. So we have six mountains, all of which are linked to medicine, deities, creation stories, journeys, battles, clans, colors, strengths, weaknesses, right? There's all these things, and all of those things are really built into the stories and the songs. So we're always orienting ourselves within those mountains, and we're always going to those mountains because they say the mountains are our leaders, our original leaders, and there's stories attached to how that came to be and why we go to them. But the mountains, we call them zith, and zith also means power. And so they hold the soil, the the energy they hold, the medicines that grow there, the animals that live there, the deities that also live there. All of that is where we get our stories from.
Oh no,
Did I fall off?
a little bit. Um,
I know it's all like, "Hey, it hasn't snowed over there yet. Don't talk the, don't tell those stories, eh?" No, but so during the winter time, we actually tell those stories in their full length. So this is a time because during the winter you have longer. So starting tonight, we're gonna start having longer nights, right? The
no,
sun is gonna,
tonight's
or
the longest
lighter
night.
nights.
It's gonna start going back.
Excuse me, I said that wrong. Yeah, but during the winter, for the most part, though, we have shorter days and longer nights, and so back in the day before television and before smartphones and all that, these devices that entertain us, we basically just had each other. So that was always a time where families would tell stories tell stories and share these stories in their entirety. And the reason why it's okay to tell them during the winter is because they say the animals are in hibernation during that time. So you're not going to disrupt them in any way if they hear their name or if they hear you talking about them, right? Because they're asleep. So we tell these stories then, and we reorient ourselves, I guess, in the way we think and the way we behave, because like the Hogan is like a microcosm for the universe. It's a microcosm for where we live also. So it's a really great place to sit around a fire and tell this story and to talk about the elements that are here and all of the beings that are here, to talk about the origination of the clans, all these things. It's just a really great time to not just reflect, but also absorb and learn this new knowledge, because it's really the only time you can really rest like that. Because once the days start to get longer again and the seasons start to change, it gets warmer, we kind of get back to work, right?
Hmm.
Like even in modern times, a lot of people take their 2 week vacation around this time so they can just be with their family, they can travel, they can focus on themselves. And so during that time period, even though it's a 2 week time period, most people like to rest. You know what I mean? They just like to chill and rest and relax. If they caught a cold, they use that time to recover. They use that time to go visit their family. So it's very similar. This is something I think all people do all over the world during wintertime, because once spring hits, it's like back to work, right? We all need to be working hard, make that money, grow those crops, blah, 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 get our kids back in school, all these things. So it's really a time to kind of, this is a sacred time for that reason. And I think it's also a time to really deeply mourn those that we lost too, because this winter time is also a time for that. It's
Hmm.
that time, that end of lifetime, that dark time, right? And we use this time to remember those who have passed on, to tell their story, to share about what you learned from them, how you remember them, and then um just let yourself mourn, because it's a healing process. It's a rejuvenation of the spirit. And then you go and move through the year again, and every season has its significance. So it's there are more joyous times, more celebratory times, but this is kind of a time for healing. And so in the Diné way, the major ceremony that's conducted in the winter is the Yebiche. It's the largest ceremony. It's the most intense ceremony. It's a protection and healing ceremony, and it lasts 9 nights and 9 days. And it's a big, big ceremony. It requires like a whole clan. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
requires a lot of people to pull it off. It's a serious ceremony, but it's also really powerful. And
Hmm.
that's the one that's held in the winter. And so if you're out and about, you might be driving through the res and you'll see these signs on the side of the road. It'll say Yebiche on it, and then it'll kind of point you in the direction. You might see little flags along the way to guide you to where it's going to be held, and it'll take you to these Yebiche grounds. And when you get there, you'll usually see the ceremonial hogan. You'll see like oftentimes people put up posts and they'll have lights on them so you can kind of see them from afar. It's almost like an arena setup. That's where the dancers are. The dancers will perform. For those that are very, very rural, or if a family is hosting it, they don't have the resources to build a whole arena. It'll be more subtle, but you'll see the bonfires going and you'll see people standing around them outside. You'll see the dancers, the yeti, and they'll be dancing and performing. You'll see the patient and their blankets all covered up, and it's a really cool ceremony. It's awesome. And then if you're a singer, you can go into the ceremony, into the hogan, and sing with the singers, and that is amazing. That's I was really fortunate to have that be my first introduction to it. Go into the hogan, and every night there's something different that happens. But um there's some nights where they make all these old school like traditional foods, and oh my goodness, they're so good. um they'll do sand paintings, and there's a protocol for every night. And women are not allowed on during certain times. Sometimes it's only men. So it's really interesting to just be there and learn, ask questions, follow the protocol, learn the protocol. And so yeah, that's kind of what we do. We're novices, you know what I mean? My family and I. But it's a really good time because I think it also toughens the kids up, because it's not really comfortable when you're outside and you're like around the campfire or around the fires, right? And you're like, it's really cold. It goes all night. I mean, these songs are sung all night. But on the last night, it is so powerful because um everyone goes out, and like the last time I did it, everyone was singing. There's these songs that they sing, and these are some of the songs that people sang when they were coming back from the long walk. And it's just this really profound moment to sing the songs of your ancestors. You know what I mean? Sing with
Mhm.
them, offer your corn pollen, and you see that blue light on the horizon, and they see that's when the holy people are there with you. And it feels like perfection. It feels like everything is going to be all right. It feels like you went through this together, and you just, like, I remember just feeling like so much hope, feeling like everything was going to be okay. Like we were going to get through this. The patient was going to be healed and restored back to Hojan, and everything was going to be all right. We're going to survive this. You know what I mean? And just sometimes life feels like that, like you're just surviving. But yeah, so that's what I know about it. It's just a little bit, but there's definitely more. I encourage everyone to go and ask your family about that, and ask questions about anything I said, because I mean, maybe something I said was incorrect, but it's always good to ask around and be like, what do you know about this? And they'll share with you. That's the cool thing. That's what I learned about Native people. They're not just gonna tell you stuff. Like me and Kelsey are doing our best to just like tell everything. But for the most part, you have to ask. That's how my family was. If you want to know anything, you had to ask. But because of my experience, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll share. I'm gonna use this platform to share what I know.
Mhm.
So that's why we always encourage people, like, ask us questions. We're here to help. And if we don't know the answer, we'll find it, and we'll help you find the answers to your questions too, or we can try to point you in the right direction. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the reasons for Navajo Tea Time is have guests who know the answers and we can ask them the
Hmm.
questions for you guys. So hopefully we'll have more guests next year. We gotta get planning on that. um,
Hmm.
yeah, I always felt like winter and everything because for me, my guide through life is like the planning system where you have like
Hmm.
the rest, review, reflect, and reward at the end, and then you have like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm planning it all out, and then I'm gonna do the to-do lists, and then you go back to reflect, review, rest, all of that stuff. It's always a giant
Hmm.
circle. It's never just like one to the end, which I feel
Hmm.
like a lot of modern day things, like maybe 10 years ago, everything's like you start and you stop, you start and you stop. But now a lot of the productivity and the goal setting systems and theories are coming back to this circular way of thinking of like things
Hmm.
don't actually have a start and an end. You know, there's always reflection and going back and redoing and then changing something up, but you're just constantly going in like the circle of like reviewing what you did, then trying it out and then reviewing it again and just constantly doing that circle to get
Hmm.
to the end goal. And yeah, so it's interesting to see like a lot of the newer theories coming back up, but it's just really really old teachings that were forced out of us that we're
Mm-hmm.
relearning again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of I like that model because it leaves a little bit of room for mistakes and for imperfections. And I think you learn the most when you make mistakes, and you learn the most when there's an imperfection, because then you recognize it, and then you can refine your process, or you can make a better choice next time. And when you leave room for error, I think you can give yourself some grace, like, okay, I messed up this time, I'm gonna try it again, I'm gonna do better. And that's like my whole philosophy on life. That's how I parent, that's how I talk to myself and encourage myself, is like, you know what, this revolution wasn't the best, but the next one's gonna be better. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
or or this choice was horrendous, I'm never gonna do that again, I'm gonna do it different. So, you know what I mean? So you learn. And I think that's a really gentle way, I think, of moving through life, because I think if you're always thinking linear, where there's a start and there's a finish, and the finishing goal oftentimes doesn't get changed up. I see people, this happens to them all the time, and that's why people have midlife crises. That's why people, like, they end up working towards something, and then all of a sudden they realize they're unhappy with it, and they're like, why did I put so much time, energy? And they have this sunk cost fallacy where they can't back out of it, because they feel like, well, I've invested too much already. And then they're miserable, and they're not allowing them, because they're only thinking linear. But if you allow yourself, to think in a circular way, you're going to allow yourself also to change your mind. You know what I mean? And follow your own feeling, your own growth, your own maturity, because as you get older and as time goes on, that also changes and shifts. So you're giving yourself room to grow.
Mhm.
And I think that's really healthy, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I think like even like with all like in my scope with like the entrepreneur business owner things, a lot of the people say to like to review what happened, review what you did
Mhm.
wrong, review what went right, and it's always going back to reviewing and being able to adapt and change. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's what the Navajo people specifically were really good at, is adapting and changing certain things to be
Mhm.
able to live where they live and even deal with like the US government.
Mhm.